Hey everybody, this is the Titanic Gamer Dude here. I'm going to be going over the basic mechanics of Resident Evil 6. So if you move the left thumbstick, you'll start walking. If you hold the left thumbstick and you move it around, you'll be able to run. Alternatively, you can just move the left thumbstick and hold the A button. If you move the left thumbstick and hold the A button and then press the left trigger, you'll do a slide. If you hold left trigger and then you press back on the thumbstick, you'll be able to turn yourself around, and you can use this to get into crowds of enemies rather safely, and you can even switch your weapon while doing it to get superior positioning and keep yourself on the offensive. Don't melee crates or barrels. Instead, slide into them. Very useful for keeping your momentum, getting back up, and just remaining mobile overall. While sliding, if you hold back on the left thumbstick, you'll immediately get up. Instead of walking up the ledges and pressing A to jump down them, run, then slide off the ledge instead. It's much more effective. While running, if you immediately let go of the A button and then hold left trigger, you'll be able to steady your weapon. This will allow you to remain mobile while keeping all offensive pressure in your favor. You can hold the A button to hop over fences, cars, etc., etc. And if you're running while doing it, the prompt won't be there. This is very useful for being able to escape sticky situations and using your environment to your advantage, as shown in the video. By holding left trigger and pressing left A, or by holding the left trigger and pressing A, you'll duck. If you press left plus A plus left trigger in unison, you'll be able to dodge left or right, and you'll do a roll. This is very useful, and if you use forward instead, you'll be able to roll forward. Or you can hold yourself in prone position by holding left trigger. This is very useful for getting your iframes, and you can even jump back while doing it. If you press left, left, or right, right while in prone position, you'll roll. You can immediately stop rolling by just letting go of left trigger. Prone is very good for doing something like this. Getting on a group of enemies very quickly, meleeing them, getting stuns, using their weapons against them to put yourself in positions of superiority. Pressing the right trigger you'll be able to execute a two-hit melee combo, and you can set up the standard melee context afterwards. There's multiple ways to set up a standard melee context. This is one of them. Running up to an enemy, using your melee, and then while they're in stun, just hit that right trigger. Doing a running melee attack into an enemy and then sliding into them sets them up for a coup de grace takedown, or just a coup de grace. Quick shotting an enemy and then sliding into them sets them up for a coup de grace. Sliding into an enemy twice sets them up for a coup de grace. Shooting an enemy in the arm or in the leg and then immediately following up with a slide sets them up for a coup de grace. Doing the 180 melee or turnaround melee attack sets enemies up for a coup de grace. When your stamina gauge is red, do not attempt to do melee attacks, or this weak little melee attack will come out and you'll leave yourself vulnerable to enemy retaliation. Instead, get into prone position and let your combat gauge or stamina refill much faster. Do not use the knife when an enemy is on the ground, because there is considerable amount of lag, and you don't want to do the same with the sniper rifles or the grenade launchers, because it's just way too laggy, as shown here. Preferably you want to use it, or with the shotgun, preferably you want to use it with the assault rifle, which is basically a better version of it, or you want to use it with a handgun. Herb combining can be somewhat time consuming if you go to the menu with the Y button and mix it that way with the A button. Instead, right bumper plus X is an excellent way of just combining your herbs and putting them into your herb case. When hit by a particularly powerful attack, hold the A button and left trigger and you'll immediately reduce the amount of stun frames you suffer from. This is very useful when fighting the Juavo and very useful in situations in which you have to move quickly. The rapid fire mechanic is very useful for weapons like shotguns and magnums, executed by readying your weapon with the left trigger, shooting with the right trigger, pressing left right on the D-pad, and then immediately rinsing and repeating with the left trigger while still holding the left trigger and tapping the right trigger. Very useful for just dealing massive damage to enemies. Now if I can find another zombie, I can show off the counter mechanic in this game, which it's very, very useful. It's high risk, high reward. If I can find another zombie, there it is. Zombies with weapons, if you time it right, during their animations where they're trying to grab you or hit you or do whatever, the prompt on the screen will appear and it's the right trigger. And as shown here, it can turn a disadvantageous situation into an advantageous situation. Use this a lot during your encounters to the best of your ability. On harder difficulties, the prompt time is very, very strict. So I would not recommend doing it on harder difficulties unless you're very, very skilled, or specifically no hope difficulty. Sliding into enemies leads to a standard melee context. By shooting an enemy in their arms, leg, or head, you set them up for a takedown. By sliding into an enemy and then shooting them in their arm or legs multiple times, you can either kill them or set them up for a takedown. By sliding into an enemy and then holding down on the D-pad and left trigger, you can slide behind enemies and get an even better position. Use this with the counter system to control space around you and your opponents. Also, back takedowns are very powerful, especially with Chris and Piers, since they can do the powerful neckbreaker attack. Anytime you think the movement in this game is a little finicky or just not as precise as you want it to be, press left trigger while you're moving around to instantly move your character to that position. This is very useful when turning your camera and enemies are flanking you or behind you and you need to just have better mobility in general and you just need to shoot and be more precise. The 180 turn, which is executed by pressing down on the left thumbstick and A, is very useful as it turns the camera along with you. The quick knife, which is executed by holding left trigger and pressing down and right trigger in unison, is a very good tactic to use with the knife. It can lead to stuns and it can lead to melee contacts, just like this. And it can also lead to takedowns too. Holding left trigger while running next to cover will immediately get you into the cover position. When commencing in-game counters or melee contexts, your character is completely invulnerable during those times. Just like this. While running, the male characters do a shoulder ram attack or a knee attack, while the female characters do a jumping kick. The jumping kick does not allow them to follow up with a melee context for the female characters. But for the male characters, the shoulder ram allows them to follow up with a melee context. Or stun. Or if you hit them again and you manage to daze them, you'll be able to follow up with a takedown. One of the biggest flaws you can do in Resident Evil 6 is remaining stationary or idle. You never want to remain stationary or idle. You always want to be moving. Always move. Do not remain stationary for too long. You want to find ways to abuse your God frames and utilize them to your advantage to the fullest. Never stay too idle or stationary, or it could be your last.